Welcome to ePathshala PG courses on computer science. We will see about the course web technology, and this is the second module, module 2, and it is an introduction about the web technology. We will see about the important standards and the essentials of the web. The learning objectives of the second module is to know about the concepts of the World Wide Web, it is a WWW, and it also provides an insight into web essentials such as URL, URI, URN, HTTP, DNS, and how the web works. The World Wide Web, it is actually an application that runs on the internet, and it provides the information to the users. The users tries to access the web pages through a web browser, that is a software that runs on the client side, and access the information from a web server. And it also provides a navigation to go from a web page to another web page. And it is a distributed document delivery system that is implemented using the application level protocols over the internet. And the popularity of this WWW has provided an exponential growth to the internet. And today we try to view all the HTML pages, or in short we call it as web pages, through this WWW. And all the resources are identified using an URL. The standards that are in WWW are the hypertext markup language, that is the HTML, that is the current standard for writing the web pages, and it has tags which instructs the client browser on how to display the information in the web page. And there is a protocol called a hypertext transfer protocol called HTTP. This protocol establishes a connection between the web browser and a server. And there is another markup language called an XML, which is an extensible markup language. This provides a format for exchanging information, and it gives the meaning to the data that is enclosed within the tags. So, there are markup languages like XHTML, SGML, and so on that exist in the WWW. And what is the difference between an HTML and an XML? HTML is a markup language for displaying the content of the web page, and it mainly concentrates on how to format and display the different data like text, images, video, and so many multimedia content on a web page. Whereas XML is a language that tries to describe the data, and all the data are enclosed in an XML tags. So, this is actually for transferring information, and XML is for, it is a meta language, and it is for transferring the information via the WWW. The three main components of the web are a hypertext markup language, the uniform resource locator, that is an URL, and a client server architecture that is implemented using a protocol called HTTP. So, this HTML is normally for specifying the contents and the layouts of the pages. And to identify the resources on the internet from the web servers, we need to have an URL, which is an uniform resource locators, and then a HTTP protocol by which the browsers actually fetch the documents from the other resources from the web servers. What is an URI? A URI is an uniform resource identifier, and it is a string of characters in a particular syntax that identifies a resource. It has components like scheme and then a scheme specific path, and it identifies different resources such as files on the server or email address or a news message and so on. The current schemes that can include are a data, file, FTP, HTTP, mail to, telnet, URN, and so on. And the scheme specific part does not have any specific syntax. It can be like a path to a web page or a resource. So, you can see here it looks like this, a double slash authority, a slash path, a question mark, and a query. And this URI is for mainly for finding out the resource on the internet. Now, when you have this URN and URL, these are the two types of URIs. URIs are for finding out a resource on the web, and there are two kinds of URIs like URN and URL. URN is called as a uniform resource name, and URL is called as an uniform resource locator. An URL is a pointer to a particular resource on the internet and at a particular location, whereas URN is the name of the particular resource, but without reference to a particular location. An URN has a general form like this, an URN colon namespace colon and a resource name. So, URN is for to identify a particular resource, but without specifying a location. So, what we need? We need a URL to identify a resource on the internet, and it specifies the protocol like FTP and HTTP, and then this URL will have the scheme like a syntax like it uses what protocol, the name of the server, and then the location of a file on that server. A standard scheme for compactly identifying any document on any web server. So, the components of a URL are we need to give a protocol name which can be HTTP, RTP or RTSP, and a colon and then double slash will give the server name, a domain name or a server IP address. Following it, we need to give the path to a resource. We can see an example like this. How does a URL looks like? It starts from the protocol name. The HTTP is a famous protocol used for sharing resources on the internet, colon double slash, and then this is the system name. So, it is an EP, ePathshala underscore web technology at annu.edu colon, the port number, and if non default port is used, it is specified only if it is not used, and then the path name, you can give the path name and the file name. So, this is how an URL looks like, and then coming to the domain name. So, why you need a domain name? So, the last module we have seen that every host computers are identified by an IP address, and we saw that this IP address is a 32-bit numbers. But if you want to fetch any resource from any of the system, we need to know the address of the computer from where we want to fetch the information. So, but these addresses to communicate with these different machines in the internet, we need to know the IP addresses, which is a logical address, and humans are not comfortable with knowing the or remembering the 4 octet, that is the 4 decimal numbers in an IP address. So, we want to, as humans, we want to remember the domain names and we do not want to remember the numbers. We are comfortable in remembering the names. So, every resource or every computer that is connected to the internet are identified by a name called domain name. So, we need to have a database of internet names, and who is going to maintain all these names? There is a server called, there are servers called domain name DNS servers, and these servers will have the internet different, will store the internet names along with their IP addresses. So, when communication happens in the internet, it is through IP addresses, the logical addresses, but the users would actually, the humans as humans will give the domain names. So, the domain names are actually converted to IP addresses from the client side, and when it reaches the destination, again the IP addresses has to be converted to a domain name. So, the mapping between this IP addresses and the domain name are given by the servers called DNS services. So, this DNS servers use the domain name in a format like this. So, we normally fetch an information giving the protocol name like the www dot some example.org. So, here whatever that comes in the suffix is the top level domain, and here this is actually the subdomain, the example is a subdomain, and you need to give any information, that is any information can be fetched with the domain name. So, this DNS often uses UDP for communication. So, now if you see that the suffix can be a 3 character like .com or .org, .edu or .net, etc. And this suffix can also be a 2-digit country code that can be of like US or .us or .in, .uk, etc. So, since internet is born in US, .com is actually mentions that the resource is from some server that exists in US, and all other countries are given a 2-bit 2 characters names like UK is for England and JP is for Japan, etc. And IN means that it is in India. So, even we have the Yahoo server is identified using www.yahoo.com. yahoo.co.in. So, co dot, it's instead of com we will give it as co dot with the country code, country specific code. So, domain names are given in this way. So, these domains are actually divided into second level domains and they are further divided into subdomains, etc. And now, so who is going to maintain these domain names? As I told you, these are all maintained in a server called a DNS service. So, initially this DNS server was maintained by US and it is called as an network information center. They have the total files of the domain names along with its IP addresses. But as the internet grows and the number of systems connect to the internet grows, we need to, this cannot be a single server, the DNS cannot be a single server which maintains the domain names along with its IP addresses for all the systems that are connected in the network, internet. So, this DNS becomes a distributed hierarchical database where we can see that there is a root DNS service and there are different kinds of DNS servers, and each DNS service is again hierarchically split into different servers. So, now we will have this DNS, the domain names are stored in a distributed hierarchical database and they are now DNS servers are available in many places. So, whoever have many addresses will actually maintain their own DNS service. Supposing a client wants to identify the IP for www.amazon.com. So, what it does is the client first queries the root server to find the com DNS server. So, here the domain name is given as www.amazon.com. So, first it takes the top level domain com. So, from the root it tries to identify the com DNS server and then client queries the com DNS server to get amazon.com DNS server. So, it goes to the next level and then it queries the amazon.com to get the IP address for the domain name. So, this is how the human communicate with the network internet. So, in the internet all the information communications happens via an IP address, whereas human tries to connect or communicate to the internet through domain names. So, a mapping needs to exist between this IP address and the domain names which are maintained by a server called DNS server. Now, coming to how the web works. So, the web works on an important protocol called an HTTP protocol, which is an hypertext transfer protocol. So, now let us see the figure. So, what happens? There are two main entities called web browser and web server. So, here the user who clicks on a hyperlink or he can type a URL in the browser, that would start this request response cycle. So, now once there should be a web browser and there should exist a web server. In the client side, it is actually a client server architecture. So, there should be a software or a program that should run in the client side which is called as a web browser, and there should be a software called a web server that is running in the server computer to provide the information to the web clients. So, the web clients fetches the information through the web browser. So, they click any hyperlink or they can give a URL in the web browser. On typing a URL, this request response cycle starts. So, whatever information that has to be passed from the client to the server is packed as an HTTP request. It is a message, it is in the form of a message, and it is this information is taken from the client to the server as an HTTP request, travels all through the internet and then reaches the server. On reaching the server, this HTTP request is interpreted by the server program, the web server, and then it fetches the relevant information from the server and the server computer, forms an HTTP response message and sends back to the client, web client. So, the main protocol that runs in this web www is the HTTP protocol. Now, coming to know what is actually a web browser. As I told you, it is a software or a program that runs in the client side. So, now what are the standard features of the web browser? It saves web pages to disk, it finds string in page, it fills forms, set preferences, style, themes, you can view the history, have a bookmark of the favorite pages, all these things. It even maintains cookies, etc. So, the additional functionality, you can even execute scripts and you can even handle events you can have GUI for controls, you can have secure communication with servers, and we can display non-HTML documents via plugins. So, a web browser is a software that is running in the client side. Coming to what is a web server, it is a program or a software that is running in the server computer. The main functionality of a web server is to receive this HTTP request via TCP. So, I told you that this HTTP is an application layer protocol, TCP is the transport layer protocol. So, from the transport layer, this message HTTP request is taken to the application layer. So, the application layer, this protocol HTTP works, which will interpret this request and fetches the information, relevant information for the client and sends back to the client. So, it maps the host header to specific virtual host, it maps request URI to specific resource associated with the virtual host, identifies the resource. So, it returns file, either it returns a file or it can run a program, the server computer, the web server can run a program and return the output in an HTTP response. So, you can have a script or a small program, that a small code that can run in the server computer, fetches the information and sends back to the client, or it just fetches some HTML pages or some web pages and then sends back to the client. So, map type of resource to appropriate MIME type and use to set content type header in HTTP response, and it log information about the request and response. Now, there are different kinds of web servers, like initially the very old web server is in HTTPD, and then we have now Apache HTTP server, we can have an Apache Tomcat, we can have an IIS, Nginx, LightPD, and then Sun Java web server, a Jigsaw server, and so many web server exist. So, these are all freely available web servers. There are a lot of web browsers. We can say the Internet Explorer is a web browser, Google Chrome is a web browser, Mozilla Firefox is a web browser, Flock is a web browser. There are a lot of web browsers are there. These are all softwares that are running in the client side and the server side. Now, coming to the hypertext transfer protocol, it is an application layer protocol and it distributes, this is a protocol for distributing information in the www, and it is based on a client server architecture. So, the web browser is called as an HTTP client that sends a request to the server for a file, and HTTP server, the web server is actually called as a HTTP server, and it has a well known port number called 80 and responds to the requested file if it is available. And for every HTTP request, there exists a single TCP connection. Once the request reaches the web server and the web server responds with the information, the connection is closed. So, how does this HTTP messages look like? They are all looking like an English based and flexible and not code based on lower layer protocols. So, the components of a HTTP message are, there is a start line, there are optional headers, each has a header name and a value, a blank line and the requested file or other data in an HTTP response. So, now looking into the format of HTTP request message. So, there would be a request line, this is required. So, the request line has got a command, URL, HTTP version number, and the request header, which is an optional, has information on the browser, date and the referring page, and there is a request body. Some information can be sent from the client to the server. Example, there can be a form that takes some information from the client and this information can be sent from the client to the server. So, looking into how this message look like, and sample is given here. The request line gives the request type, which can be a GET or a POST. Here it is a GET. Then the URL which page you are requesting. URL is the identifier of the resource, and then the version, HTTP version, and the optional headers will have a header name and a value. Here the header name is given as accept image or GIF, accept language, accept encoding, user agent, host, connection. So, these are all optional headers along with the values and then a blank line. Some information can also be sent from the client to the server. And how does an HTTP response message look like? It has a response status. So, the response status, that is an optional one which has an HTTP version number, status code, reason. Response header, which has got information on the server, date, URL of the page retrieved and the format used. And what is required is the response body, which is actually the requested web page by the client. So, we can see a sample of how this HTTP response message looks like. The status line, the first line is the status line, which has got 3 components. The HTTP version, this is here it is HTTP 1.1, and the status code 200 means that without any error it is an OK, and then the status phrase is OK. And then the optional headers has got information of the server, about the server. So, the date, server, what is the server, lost, modified, accept ranges, content length, connection, content type. So, all these are some of the headers along with its values, a blank line and the data body, which is the required one, that is, this is the information that is sent from the server to the client. Now, as I told you, so some information we want to access from the client, from the server, and then we want to access by the client. So, there can be some program with there is a web browser and a web server. Web browser is running in the client side and web server is running on the server side. Now, there can be some more thing that can be added to this client and the server. So, there exists a scripting that can be done on the server. So, it is actually a web server technology in which the user request is verified by running a script directly on the web server to generate dynamic web pages. So, if you want to create dynamic web pages, then we need to add scripting, and this scripting can be either done to the client side or it can be done in the server side. So, we have a client side scripting or the server side scripting. So, what we will study about in this course is about what are the technologies that exist for doing this scripting. So, there exist some server side scripting technologies like JavaScript and server side scripting technologies like JSP, servlets, etc., ASPs, etc. So, here in the client side also you can do a scripting. So, either we can request for static web pages from the server, or you can request for a dynamic web pages. The server actually contains the .html files. These are served to the client browser on request. This local browser again may have some interaction via client side scripting. Say for example, you can write a JavaScript program that runs on the client side. So, the HTML pages are fixed and cannot be altered to match the individual request. So, these are all static web pages. When you add some scripting to the client side, then the web pages becomes a dynamic model. So, actually the web page, the .html file can be a page, can be a static pages, or you can add some scripting to the client side where this HTML pages becomes a dynamic one. So, you have technologies like DHTML, CSS. This would actually make your web page as an JavaScript, which will make your web page as an dynamic one. Say for example, if you take a form, then if the form gets the username or password something, then it is actually interacting with the client. So, there runs a small script code in the client side which tries to fetch the client information, the username and the password. So, this along with the static information, you also tries to get the information from the client side by running a small code, and then tries to validate in the client side. Say for example, if you say that the password should be of these many characters. So, if you want to do this validation need not be done in the client side, need not be done in the server side. So, password checking need not, this information need not go all along from the client to the server and then to be checked. So, instead what we can do is there can be a small client side script along with the page. So, the web page, the form that is displayed to the client has a small script code that runs, will check whether the password is of these many characters or not. So, the small code that runs in the client would make the web page as a dynamic model. So, here you can see that HTML pages are generated when they are requested. The basic page is done in a scripting language and uses HTML and CSS. This is static content, it provides a static content. A variable data is generated by scripts running on the interpreted program running on the web server. So, there can also be server side programs. So, these days many web pages are not served from static files on the hard drive. Instead, the server generates them dynamically to meet the user request. So, either the contents are pulled from the database or generated algorithmically by a program. So, in Java we have server side programs that are returned using servlets or Java server pages. They can also be written with other languages such as C, Perl script and other frameworks such as ASP, PHP, etc. So, now we have a small code that could run in the server side. So, in the server computer, the resources, when you give an URL, the resources are fetched statically, no changes are done to the resources, they are fetched and sent as an HTTP response to the client, or when you fetch some information from the client side, on the server side there could run some server programs like say a JSP code that is running on the server side that could fetch information from the database, do some validations or do some processing and then send back to the client. So, these are all the essentials of the web. So, here what we have seen is we have actually explored about the World Wide Web and its standards. The standards are the HTML, the HTTP, XML and so on. And we have discussed about how the web works within HTTP protocol, and we have also explored about the HTTP protocol, how it works and what are the message format, the request and the response format. Thank you.